All right. Well, good afternoon, No Limits fans. This is Tom Zelliff coming to you live, ready with the results show of the Three Blind Mice. I am joined by Elias. Say hello, Elias.
Hey, it's Elias, but you
Elias.
might know me as A113. No worries.
We even talked about this ahead of time. It's like, I don't want to mess anybody's name up. I don't want to mess anybody's name up. And I messed someone's name up.
All right.
What can you do? So, excellent. And also joined by Auntie. Hello, Auntie.
Hi everyone, you might also know me as Fintamin.
Yes. Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for being here and ready to show the results. Um, for those who may not have been aware that this contest was even going on or much about this particular contest, Elias, would you go ahead and let us know, give kind of the overall background of what this contest is, how it worked, and the process of judging?
Sure thing. So, for those of you who don't know, this competition is called Three Blind Mice. It actually dates back to the NL1 No Limits 1 days. Back on the forums, basically the way it was structured is three people would be assigned to a team. There would be one person who would build the track, one who would support the track, and one who would theme it and create colors and the name and the general vibe. And the three basically would not know who they were on a team with, and nobody knew what each ride was going to look like until the themer would upload to the exchange. Now, it's been probably around a decade since this competition has been hosted, especially now that No Limits 2 is out with such a more wide range of features. I think it felt fitting that it was time to give it a go, and there's a lot of enthusiasm behind this. So we actually have probably the largest three blind mice ever right now, with a total of 36 people participating, which makes for a total of 12 teams of three. That's 12 fully themed rides that, to many of your surprise, is actually going to be very high quality across the board. So we're very excited for everyone to see the hard work that everyone put in. Everyone got 2 weeks to do their role before myself and Amalia, who will be joining a little late, but she helped me host this contest. We handed all the files off to the next person. So yeah, it's really exciting. It was a 2 weeks. I think was probably just enough time to get something together and to not feel like a lot of pressure. So think of it as a 2 weeks of power, if you will. So that's where we're at right now, and I think we're all very excited to get started. Hello.
Yeah, I was very surprised to hear that only 2 weeks time. And when I saw the results, I was like, this is what people do in 2 weeks. This is amazing.
Perfect. I realized I was talking for a moment on mute. That's spectacular. Um, but yeah, so the 2 weeks doesn't seem like it seems like a lot of time, but when you're the person having to work really hard, especially given the epic nature of a lot of the entries, that 2 weeks is not much time at all. So it's really impressive what came together, which each person taking on 2 weeks. There are four categories that we were judging by. The first is the quality of the coaster. The second was the supports, and did they make sense, and did they fit whatever was handed over from the coaster designer. Third was the theme, so that's all of the surrounding environment surrounding the coaster. And then finally was cohesion, which is kind of a team overall score. How well did everything fit together? Did it look like this was all a single idea that you couldn't tell that three different people worked on it, or did the parts seem to have nothing to do with each other and they were just kind of slapped together with no real thought about it? So that's how he did it. And to make things even more fun, while Elias and Amalia knew who did what, Auntie and I did not. We had no idea who was on which team, so we were judging blind to make it even more fun.
Hmm.
And you still don't know who's on each team, which
Exactly.
is even better.
We still have no idea. So we're going to be finding out with everybody here. We are going to reveal the top five along with one honorable mention. I will go ahead and load the honorable mention up. Reason why we wanted to bring this particular honorable mention up first is because of our four categories, this particular honorable mention ended up getting the best score in supports. almost getting a perfect 10, getting a 9.75. So that's why we wanted to bring this one up. And this is Starship from Team 3. So while we wait to load, uh, there it goes. All right, so we're in here. We can see we have a rocket taking off and a whole bunch of things flying around the tower. Quite an impressive bit of work. As we get in here, I'm going to have to just jump into the first coaster car so everybody can see what the ride looks like, because there is no pathway that actually connects to the station. But let me go ahead and hop in here and see what happens. So this coaster, as we're going to take a look at it, it was very good coaster. You'll see in just a moment. I thought great track width, super smooth, just little bits of wiggles here and there. The coaster is very fun, well paced, and it gets bigger and faster as it goes, so it gets more exciting as you go along, which is great. And even the first launch area isn't a sleepy little warm up with just little wiggles back and forth. It actually has some fun things going in there. Trains never stacked. Everything went really well. On the coaster side, maybe a little more storage so you could park all of those trains would have helped, but otherwise it was great. And I thought, as you'll see as we go by, the support work was just absolutely perfect. It could not have been better done. It looked professionally engineered, with all the right size tubes, covering all of the gaps that you could see go by. All the angled supports for the turns, they all worked really, really well. The theme, there's a lot of heavy work here, as you can see. Lots of I thought a lot of work with the rocks, giving this weird Martian or otherworldly landscape. There's a giant flying ship overhead. There's the rocket that takes off and landing. Then there's those flocks of things that are flying around, which really look cool, along with the sky. A lot of cool stuff overall. Where the one thing that this entry kind of fell flattest on, I thought, was that there was no way that you could walk around it. Where you started, there was no path to carry you to the coaster, and you could never. The coaster station itself is unsupported. It's not finished. There's no platform getting to it. The loading gates are there. You can't walk onto it. Can't walk out from the exit. The buildings are shells. You can't walk through them. It was very disappointing in that regard, that it seemed like it was these elements didn't feel like they tied together that well, because that part didn't make sense. But there's still a lot of really cool stuff going on. So, and ultimately being the top score overall, getting a near perfect for the supports, is the reason we wanted to bring an honorable mention to Team 3 with Starship. Gentlemen, what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this like all coasters, there were no bad entries at all. I think most entries scored over 30 out of a total of 40 points, which is already like hats off to you guys. Everyone did excellent job. For this one, I really liked how the pre-launch interacted with the second launch. So when you're kind of just going to start your ride, you can already see another train coming towards you in the cave. And one of my favorite elements on this was the very high-speed roll on the after the second launch. It reminded me of Ice Speed in a really good way. Yeah, that's the one.
That one right there?
So, yeah. Support-wise, yeah, like you said, this was really, really good. I especially liked, besides everything you said, I liked the details on the transfer table. So if you fly over there, just look at the details. Like this is properly engineered.
Yeah, and it's done very well in the Intamin style. You know, Intamin will definitely find the least the method that uses the least amount of material overall, or is the easiest to manufacture. So I-beams to hold up the track like this, it's exactly what they would do these days. They do a lot of clever things like that to really get the most mileage out of the sports possible. And you look at these things, all of these little angles, which I should be able to show you guys, like this stuff, it's perfectly lined up all the way around, exactly how it would be should anyone design it. You know, even these little guys, they're perfectly angled. All of these little details really counted and really stuck out to me, that the supports were very well done. The gaps weren't too bad between support columns, and the supports got denser, meaning packed more closely together in the high G areas, exactly where you'd want to see them. So I was very, very impressed overall with the supports coming and how they came together, and worked beautifully to sit on the train like this.
I'd like to mention I'm also here. Hello.
Oh,
Sorry
hello.
for being late.
Hey,
Hi.
Molly.
Hey. I like to mention just the fantastic nature of this layout. Like as a visual, because normally, Tom, are you able to go back to the view that you have like right when you start up,
Sure.
if you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
The
just in that
spawn
general
point.
area, because I feel like just the way that this environment is presented is so striking. It's just not something you see often in NoLimits 2, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like, aside everything else that you guys had said, the supports are just utterly fantastic. I loved every single inch of this ride in terms of supports, and the layout is really funky. But my main love for this ride is just what it is as a whole. It's just so, like, look at it. It's just so different, and I love it. You know?
Yeah,
I totally
Yeah,
agree with
very
that.
original. I like it.
and I love that the
Yeah, I think
biodomes actually have plants and trees in them and grass. I mean, this
it's
kind of stuff is
fun.
really cool.
Yeah, I
Just
think
very.
Tom and Auntie, I think you both really covered all of the strong technical aspects of the project, but creatively, it's like it really hits a lot of high marks as well. I think it really hits more of that zany, very over the top presentation, kind of like what Malia was hinting at. Just feels very much what you would want to make in No Limits 1, but now with No Limits 2, you can make this basically. And all the technology nerds will note the Starship that actually does the full SpaceX
Does the
belly
flip.
flop and all. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
it's
good.
awesome.
Hmm. Although it's very
It's fun.
unrealistic because it didn't fall over and explode.
That's true.
That's true.
Very
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I can go with that.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go ahead, before we close the books, would you like to reveal who was on Team 3?
Sure thing. So, wonder if anybody can start to guess, or if
Oh
any of
yeah,
you
I
two.
wanna hear guesses. That's fun.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
about
Tom.
a
I
20
have
second
like
delay,
barely
but
any guesses for any.
yeah.
Well, we'll start with you, Tom and Auntie, while the rest of the stream catches up. We're all on a 20-second. We're 20 seconds ahead of the chat,
Yep.
everyone. So bear with us.
Yeah. Go ahead and post your guests in the chat. As for who built all this, I have a very
Oh,
hard time
I have
determining
only
who did this. There's just so much good stuff. Um,
Yeah, looking at the supports, I'm gonna say it has to be someone that actually has like an engineering degree. So maybe like I said now,
Hmm. Okay.
and that's gonna be my only guess.
yeah, I can't peg anybody specifically because it's, you know, every week I'm not downloading as many coasters. Every week I'm looking at so many roundup videos. So I kind of look at from the base that perspective, but I don't have a chance to really dive in there and look at everybody's things in here. The most of the sports I look at are for the annual not 3 billion mice, but 5 hours of power. And in those ones, those are supports that are usually very rushed, as opposed to perfectly placed over 2 weeks. So I couldn't guess it.
yeah. I think chat will probably have an easier time guessing who's who because I feel like a lot of people are very familiar with each other's styles. And I think that's kind of the fun of having chat guess, I suppose.
Exactly. All right.
Well, I can go ahead and reveal it, and I'll type it out as soon as I'm
Elias,
done saying.
do you have the spreadsheet up?
I do. I do.
Okay, good.
Yes, I do. But I know everyone by memory, just the amount of handled all the files. So to announce Team 3, the first team to announce in the Three Blind Mice 2021 contest, Team 3 with the honorable mention. The track is done by South Coasters, you might know on Discord as South Coasters, but also username Baker Steros. On supports, we have J Pow. You all know J Pow. And
Mm-hmm.
on theme, we have the Codemaster. So again,
Ah.
on track, we have Baker Steros or South Coasters, J Pow, and the Codemaster. Congratulations to Team 3 on this honorable mention. And I'll type it in on the chat right now.
Excellent. Good job, everybody.
Y'all
Uh,
did
Yeah,
really awesome on this
well
one. I
done.
love this ride. It's so funky.
yep. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to fifth place. We'll go ahead and load that up right now. And this was done by Team 2. I'm very happy to see the effort that we're going to look at in just a moment as soon as it finishes loading. Uh, so, Elias, take it away.
Sure thing. So now we're into the top 5, and it's going to get real exciting now. So this is Team 2 with Flug des Nachtkrab. I hope I pronounced that right.
I believe it's Flug des Nachtkrabs, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my God. Okay, you got it probably
Yeah.
better than I
Yeah.
did. But so now I have to say, just also even as a general note for all these entries, there's a really thoughtful nature to where the spawn point is in most of these entries, and it's really an entire experience from the time you first load up the park. So this is already a very fun entry. It's perched up on top of a mountain, kind of has like a Transylvanian vibe, but there is a backstory to this. I think it's some folklore. It's described in the park description, but I think just the architectural vernacular that's presented here, I think, is enough to kind of present a certain atmosphere and vibe. So it's really exciting. All the modeling is just exquisite.
Ah,
All the proportions are great. The interior spaces, I think, are just amazing. This is a wonderful queue. Everything's modeled nicely to scale, all the columns and everything, and really, and even the area we were just outside at, Tom, was really nice with lots of variations of space with compression and expansion. And this is a launched Gerslauer Infinity Ride, which probably might have been one of my favorite layouts. The competition is really, really excellently done. So we'll go ahead and go on board here and check it out, and we'll talk through as we go through it.
yep. We'll go ahead and speed time up so we're not staring at in a murky void for too long.
Oh, but that's exciting. It's part of
That's
the
part of the
excitement.
experience.
Oh, in that case,
Yeah,
let me slow it
exactly.
down to barely any
Yeah.
murky void.
So
The
this
void we
has a
go.
really fun pre-launch moment into. It seems like a catacombs or something. It's not really explicit, but just the atmosphere is just really sets up the mood. And in typical Gerslauer fashion, it has all the little pre-drops into the launches, and this is a really nice layout. Honestly, it's just really well done. All the elements are scaled very well. All the geometries are constructed in a smooth and also in a pleasing manner. Paces really well too. Really nice rhythm and flow, I think, of all the elements. And it's very contemporary in terms of what most of the current rides these days are doing. It's really nice. And once and then this final portion is just out of whack. It's just really high paced, lots of quick changes in direction. It's very fun and exciting. And I think what the setup and by the way, all the supporters had reins in terms of what the terrain was doing. So once we finished the ride here, we could go off board and fly around. This whole ride is situated on top of a mountain, which is really cool. I think that's very unique from a,
Fly out here.
yeah, right here. So we're on top of a giant mountain. You can see the winding path there that leads up to the ride. It's a really great atmosphere. And I think creatively situating the coaster track on a hillside or a mountain, it's really nice. If you zoom in right there to that
Oh,
turnaround, there
yeah,
actually
gotta
this,
the
yeah, this moment
supports.
right here. So I think there's like this idea creatively that is suggested by the supporter to have like these moments of it's really precarious that you're just teetering over the edges of this mountain, which is like incredible. I think what for me felt like could have been improved maybe it was a bit more thought to where these might have been in relation to the layout. I think, for example, the drop off the mid course brake run could have been a really exciting moment to feel like we're going over the edge of the mountain. But still, I think by itself, it's a great idea and it's done well as is. And again, the modeling of the castle is really great too. I think I just wish probably from the exterior, the textures could have used a bit more variation. There's a bit of an obvious tiling that's going on, but it's still very proportionally well done. It seems really in style of the vernacular it's based off of, and the interior work is done great as well. I love the queue, and I love the space you go through. There is this one part of the ride though that it goes through like a really large space with a couple beds in the corner, and I think that that's supposed to tie to the backstory here, which I think is there's like a monster that feeds on children who don't sleep or can't sleep. I'm completely sorry to the femur. If I'm mistaken, but I think there's enough going on to sort of suggest the narrative, and I think there could have been maybe a bit more to make it clear or expand on it. But I think this is still overall an exciting entry and a very memorable one indeed. I'll hand it off to whoever else wants to make some comments.
Yeah, I'll point out a couple of things I saw. I think you're spot on a lot of it. Um, the castle is great, but the texture does get a little repetitive. But I did appreciate that this entrance path, even though we started roughly here, maybe a little bit further down, this entrance path really goes way back. I walked all the way down just to see where it would end up. So taking the time to run it that far
Yeah, me
down,
too.
it worked out really well because it gives a way for people to arrive and depart, which helps build the whole scene. Um, and that was something I looked for when we're looking for a
Just look at
cohesion.
this view.
Yeah.
And on that note, I also love how like especially the foliage detail continues all the way down the path. I felt like I mean, maybe not all the way, but it still feels like part of the environment. It doesn't feel like it's just plopped off into the background as like green field or anything like that. It still feels like you're there, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Now that works really
Yeah,
well.
definitely.
I had a couple of quibbles with the operation of the ride. There is always a train stacked here, always, and often another train will join it there because there's a train stacked here, and then there's a train that's taking forever to load. If the settings were altered a little bit, this train could park centered on that transfer track, and then the one coming in would be able to park behind it. But this all tells me that basically you could remove one train from the layout and it would be just as efficient and avoid some of the stacking problems. And then the other thing, this ride does actually have an exit, which is good. Some of the rides that were placed in there did not have exits, so there was no obvious way once you got off of the ride of anywhere to go. We'll point some of those out if we find them, but I did like a lot of the details overall. Shelves for loose stuff, so that way you can just leave it there and someone can steal it while you're on the ride. Perfect. But overall, very nice effort. It got solid scores all the way around, and just a few quibbles here and there. I had a couple issues with a couple of the supports. While they were generally good, there are a couple of oddball things where I'd expected a little more bracing for that, and it's getting dark in the scene, so it's kind of hard to see it. That turn that hangs out over the side, really cool, and I like using the cables to brace it, but I wasn't entirely sure. I thought that was fully structurally sound. But in any event, it shows that they're thinking the right way in terms of where the forces are going to be. This is cute, the little support that's hanging out there to connect the two tops. Although this is a pretty long span on both directions, even with the little support, so that's kind of pushing it a little bit. And this twisty span that high up is also probably pushing it a little bit for how much you can get away with without a support. So, if it was just an up and down top hat, probably be okay, but you add the twisting of the train, and now it's going to throw different stresses on there. So it's these little things that, because everything else was done so well, these are the things that stuck out as additional details that were missed.
Yeah, we really had to go on with a tight comb to find and make any differences between all the entries because the level of quality was so high.
Yep.
Can you go to the room over here? This lighting, man, this is just
It's
so
amazing.
beautiful.
I would also like to point out here the use of a virtual tunnel in this is so clever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good catch.
It's because like you hear it. I know we can't share audio, but once you're up on the mountain, it's very windy because obviously when you get high up into the environment in NoLimits 2, the wind effect, it kind of just blows right in your ear. But the contrast between that sort of constant loudness and then just the dead quiet that's in this crypt as a result of the virtual tunnel it's such a small little thing, but it adds so much, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's great detail for sure. There's a lot of thought that went into the theming of this ride. Absolutely. And I'm already seeing a lot of guesses for who did the theming. So we'll get into that shortly. But yeah, I don't know how we're doing on time, Tom, if we're ready to start guessing who worked on this.
Yep. We'll go ahead and get that reveal.
So what do you guys think between yourself and Auntie?
I'm not going to be able to
I have
hazard
no
that many
guess on
guesses.
this.
because they're
Fair
gonna.
enough.
Yeah, there are so many people who could pull this off.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's get into the next reveal. Announcing for Flug des Nachtkrebs, team number 2. On track, we have Bug Monster 1, also known as Kelton. For supports, we have Intim 305, also known as Calvin. And lastly, but not least, most of you are correct. PVM is on theme. Congrats, Team 2, on placing 5th for this exciting project. And I'll type it in on the chat right now.
Very nice. Hey, from this angle, it looks like Scourge.
Oh my god.
I will never let that go.
I thought it was dead. I guess it's not.
No, it will never die.
Everyone yells at me in the Discord for making Scourge jokes, and all right.
Hey, I throw them on the NoLimits channel whenever I can, because it's fun. All right, let's move on to 4th place now. And this one is a lot of people are gonna be really, really confused.
Oh boy.
Now,
Yeah.
Now, this one especially was one of the reasons
What
why we
could
would
you
not be
even-
able to play the audio for this. Wouldn't be appropriate for the large audience, and we would probably get a YouTube strike. So that's a couple of the coasters that are being featured do have audio that may be copyrighted, and we wouldn't be able to play it anyway. So that's why we're overall going with no sound.
I don't even think that's a probably. I'm pretty sure it's
But then again,
No, go ahead, Auntie. I'm sorry.
then again, this is one of those rides that I would personally recommend you to download and experience yourself, because with the audio stuff, it's a ride, pun intended.
It's a whole experience.
From the start to finish. Yeah. This is just like this is a lot, and it really surprises you with every second as it progresses, because you start in this normal looking building, and you just there's custom audio going on over here as well, and you enter this train and you think everything's normal, and then
It's
stuff happens.
It's very not.
Yeah, and stuff that happens
and you
is
very
timed music.
quickly realize it's just like, yeah, it's like maybe just lay back and just enjoy and embrace everything that happens.
Like, suspend your disbelief.
Yeah. This is art. I would say this is art.
And I'll also point out that this particular one got the best in theme.
And in my opinion, very well deserved.
Yeah, like from a technical point of view, everything is just like very skillfully crafted and detailed to the last minute detail.
And now everybody,
So now you
I look
see
forward to see what the chat reaction is.
Yeah, I'm so excited to read chat on this. It's ridiculous. Just like, you launch out of that dark tunnel and... Sorry, go ahead.
They end up in a very strange place.
But it's just so... Yeah, it's very it's very like high level of skill. Even though it's a chaos, but it's like... It's well done.
It's technical art. It's chef's kiss. It's just incredible. Like, everything here is just so... it's so good. And it's really well optimized too. Like, it is ridiculously well optimized.
Yeah, it ran very well for all the crazy things going on, which I certainly appreciated. And everybody that's jumping right to guessing XYZ, it was not XYZ. XYZ was not in the contest. So they keep telling me.
He wasn't. Although most of you probably won't be surprised when you learn who it was.
And then you get back to the station and the normal audio restores, and then you think, oh, that was cool. That was an experience.
I don't think I've ever like walked into a ride and like immediately gone, oh my god, upon just it happening, just the moment where you exit that tunnel. It's ridiculous. You have to, everyone in the audience, you have to experience this ride on your own with the audio. Just do it. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's its own crazy thing. Now,
definitely.
the audio that is in there, there is some adult language in there, so keep that in mind before you do it. But outside of that, there's a lot of amazing things going on. A couple of the things that I noticed, along with the theme being so amazing in terms of cohesion, there's no real entrance. I mean, you have this entrance queue, but there's nothing past that point, and there's no exit, although they have some neat forced perspective hallways, which are kind of cool. These stairs don't go anywhere either. But the nature of what's being done would prevent that from happening. You couldn't really build an entrance and exit because of the things that are going on. I'll leave this up to everybody on broadcasting with. Should we reveal how it's all being done and go on the outside?
Maybe.
I'm very 50-50 on that.
Yeah,
Like maybe,
I'm
but
pretty
then
split.
again, maybe not.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and say no. I think everyone should explore
Yeah.
this ride for themselves.
Yeah, that
Let's
sounds
keep
fair.
the secret.
Yeah, there are a lot of really clever tricks happening. In fact, we'll just go ahead and take a second ride then. A lot of really clever tricks happening on the ride overall that allow that to work. And it's better to not spoil the method and just enjoy the experience of what has been pulled off. So it's really, 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 really cool. So we'll wait for our ride. I don't want to speed up here in case things are going to go. Any additional thoughts about this? Some of my observations I had on this, the support side were kind of the weakest piece of it. There, a lot of work went into it, I think, trying to get the correct angle in there. The towers for some of the taller structures are the best support work there. But I felt the supports overall were inconsistent. There's a lot of supports that are thicker than they need to be, which is usually not the case. Usually when the supports are off, they're usually thinner than they should be for certain areas. There are some times where the support tubes should have been smaller to make it fit better, and then some more support density in areas to kind of better absorb the forces that are going on. That's where I was getting my pickiness. And then on the cohesion, while this is a really amazing theme and deserved its best in show for the theme side of it, because there is no way in and out of this world, there's no explanation for how you get to it or how you get away from it. I had to lower the score a little bit there for my judging of it, just because while it works as this amazing surreal piece of art, it couldn't actually exist.
Yeah, for me, it was like a very technical and realistic coaster, but presented in a fantasy environment. So it's like, should I judge this based on realism, or should I judge this based on fantasy? So it was kind of a juxtaposition for me as well.
And something that with a little more something, I don't know if it'd be planning or effort or what's the fair thing to go with there. A little bit more could have given all of this an explanation with show buildings that were hidden so that you could have the indoor scenes, you could have the special effects tunnels and stuff like that, and still have it all tie together. And you could have had an entrance that came from the other side of the ride, not from the crazy part of the ride that keeps it all hidden behind a hillside. So I think it could have been done to actually make this a working, really weird coaster.
Yeah, I totally agree with all these comments. Though I think it's tough because I think there's such a high level of precision that there's this balance of it's a very technically sound roller coaster, but in this very surrealistic environment, that it really depends, I think, subjectively on who's experiencing it, if it's supposed to be a fantasy ride or if it's supposed to be a real ride. I think there's enough going on for me personally that it's suggestive to be a real ride, and there's enough, I think, well, within a fantasy universe, I'll say. And I think a lot of how this is presented is just it's so well done. It takes a lot of cues from what real rides, and I would even say dark rides do. With it's very theatrical. Everything is staged a certain way. There's a certain pacing with the audio. You guys can't hear the audio right now, but there's a certain pacing to all the audio clips. It's timed perfectly to certain things your eyes are oriented to. There are many elements that are moving in such a fun way that helps enhance the pacing of the overall experience. There's a setup when you come in, you're in this environment, and it's a bait and switch, and you're transported to a whole other world. It's a trip. It's really really a trip, and I absolutely love it. It's littered with so many details that I think once this is on the exchange, you should totally check out and see all the details. really done excellently. I can't speak any more highly about it. And just even technically, it's very optimized. It runs so flawlessly. All the textures are done really well as well, and it's just you feel like you've traveled to a lot of places. So I personally enjoyed this a lot. And I can see how it might be perceived one way or another depending on who experiences it. But there are many magic tricks going on here that are definitely worth checking out in fly mode after you download it. And I would even say that there's a lot happening here that I think could be done reasonably within a show building. I agree with you, Tom. I feel like that would have given this maybe an extra push forward overall as a project. But I still think there's enough to suggest that, things, it still has this balance of, oh, it can be done feasibly, but it's still following the rules of a universe. Like each part of the ride kind of has set up its own set of rules, and it sticks to it for all those parts. So anyway, I can't speak any more highly of it. It's great. But yeah, this is fourth place. So I'm really excited for you guys to see what's next. So how about the guesses for what do you guys think? XYZ was not in this contest, so
I'm
who else
so
could have
eager
done
to
this?
hear what people thought of this.
I was so sure that this was themed by the Codemaster, but then when I just heard that the Codemaster did Starship, then maybe not. Then my only other guess is that the layout kind of feels like Jay's vibe, so Element 115,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
that's all my guesses.
All right. So we're seeing some of the chat for the guesses. So I think we'll just go ahead and reveal who's on. This is Team 11 again for Chun Trails over Chromatica. Lady Gaga. What's the full name? I gotta say
You
the
have
full
to
name
read the full name.
because it's like you gotta say Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure.
Yeah,
So
okay, you know what? That's valid.
all right. I'll just say Chun Trails over Chromatica. On track, we have Helix with a 3. On supports, we have Emonadio. And on theme, we have none other than Robin Bob, also known as Square Boy or Scott. Congratulations to Team 11. And I'll type it into the chat right now.
Yeah, congrats, guys. This was crazy to think it was all done in 2 weeks per person.
The entire Barb chat is probably going crazy right now. And it's warranted. Ooh, here's a good one.
Someone on mute again?
I'm
keep
on
doing
mute.
that. I keep muting myself. So here we're at third place. For again, Ethereal, yes. So this was Team 12 that put this together. This has got a lot of cool stuff. This has one of the most amazing reveals of any of the coasters in the contest, which I'll show you when we get to it. That's Team 12, just scrolling down to my notes on it so I can see. Yeah, this was great. Now this did take a while to load, if I remember correctly, because there's a lot of things to put together. And it's almost done.
You have to just, part of the experience of this ride is just kind of, part of the top 3 is kind of just, sorry, not the top 3. Part of Ethereal is just kind of chilling where you spawn just for a second and taking it in, because it's such a well-crafted environment, and you'll see what I mean.
It is. So this is where you start.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
And you notice that you don't actually start, there's no coaster here. You're starting out here on the rocks. Oops, let me get for some reason I lost my pointer. On this nice dock. And what's cool is that this is one of those coasters that did a good job giving you some kind of an explanation of how you got here, which is boats. And you know what? That's all we needed. So they've got this nice luxury speedboat and out here, nice barbecue stand so I can barbecue. Who wants some burgers? But it gives an explanation as to how we got to this place, because it does look like it's set up to be an island, which is really cool. So we continue our adventure back here down the main pathway. So as I was mentioning, this is one of the best reveals. It gave you this look to start, And
And then
then,
it has the like Tokyo Disney Sea tunnel that's
yeah,
like really awesome.
so this big tunnel that you're wandering through, and the reveal that happens at the end of it is spectacular. So I'm going to stop running as we get there, so you guys have to all wait for it. Um,
It's
because
beautiful.
because it uses this rock tunnel to block your view of the coaster until you get there, and then it helps frame it when you do actually emerge from the tunnel. So you can start seeing a little bit of coaster track, and you can see the lanterns there, and more of it's going to emerge, and it just reveals itself beautifully by using the environment. This is a trick that the pros use. This is a trick that the Universal creatives, Disney, they all use this trick as portals when you enter into a new land to kind of this stunning reveal of what you're about to go look at. So you open up into the inside of this island and you see this amazing place and all this huge coaster in the middle of the scenery, and approaching it from this low angle like this, it looks very, very realistic, very much like it could be a real thing. So I'm going to go ahead and start running. We're going to go in through our queue, which this will be one of the ones where I do walk through the queue because the queue is very nicely done.
Hey Tom, quick question. Do you have ambient occlusion turned on, or do you have that off for the streaming?
I don't remember. I'd have to turn it down to take a look and see what the setting was,
I'm s-
but it should be
I'm
there.
seeing a lot of people saying SSAO in the chat, so I think they're like up the graphics. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I don't remember if I do or don't have it on, but I don't want to go back there because to do that I'd have to interrupt our stream. So it'll be good enough for now, folks.
Yeah. Also we're streaming this, so already pushing another some extra strain on the computer. So what you
Yeah.
want to do is go download these rides and experience them yourself.
Yep, in all their glory. So very nice queue. I love that it was a nice long queue that gave you things to look at without being with a ton of switchbacks that you just have to jump over. So it's very nicely done. The coaster itself is amazingly smooth. I give it a very high score for that. Good variety, good speed, direction changes. Forces get us tad high at times, but they peak over negative 1.5, which might be a bit much. But great operations. Trains keep moving and flowing through the ride. No stacking. Realistic load times. Everything was great there. Supports are very well done. Also, there's a couple of times
This
where
is a
it's
really fun layout too.
yeah,
Go ahead,
a
Tom.
lot of fun. There's supports where occasionally three or four pipe track may have made more sense, or at times when four pipe track was used, when three pipe track would have made more sense for what Intamin would do. Um, and most of the supports are good, but we had a couple spans that got a little bit too large for my taste, or for what I thought would be realistic, and a few other oddities here and there. But and that's usually what would catch my eye on the supports, is that it's inconsistent. And I'll fly around later and show some examples of what I'm talking about. But it's great. The theming is very well done, but I felt that there wasn't a ton going on behind all the rocks and trees that were there. I'm not sure why there are these satellite towers or these radio towers there. Um, it's a great looking island, though. It's very well handled, and the way that it fits in together looks really well. The terrain definitely looks like it was kind of there first, and they wrapped a coaster around it as opposed to the other direction. So that was all good. Very smoothly put together.
Oh,
Has an
on that
exit.
note,
Has an
sorry.
actual exit. Go ahead.
On that note, actually, the cues that the supporter took from the track, because when you got this track, it was pretty much just there, if that makes sense. I feel like the track work was set up so that it had this idea of, okay, this should be on this sort of terrain, and the terrain should do this around the coaster, and it should all fit together. And the supporter took those cues flawlessly. I mean, the amount of cohesion between those two roles in this project specifically was really astounding to me.
And then we're gonna head
Yeah, I
to
totally
the
agree with
exit.
that. I think that's part of the beauty of Three Blind Mice is where each of the roles start to influence and suggest the creative direction of the overall ride. And I think even while Amalia and I were handling the handoff of this particular file, the cohesion already felt very strong from role to role. Everyone was picking up on the cues and capitalizing on what was set up, because when you see this on a flat ground, it's like a giant maverick drop into an even larger drop afterwards, which makes no sense on a flat ground, but it makes sense on some type of terrain. It's actually really in the middle of a ravine. Everything kind of weaves in and out of a ravine. So I think the supporter did a great job crafting all that, and even crafting different views as you ride through the entire track. I think there's this one point where there's an S hill that reveals the lookout to the water. It's probably my favorite part of the whole ride. Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
beautiful
yeah. This is
because
easily my favorite element as well.
you don't really see the beach until this one part, and you just see the infinity horizon. It's really sublime. I love
And
it.
just the reflectivity of the water too, it just adds so much to this little moment.
It really
Yeah, it's
does.
ethereal. It's
It's just,
I agree.
ethereal.
yeah, exactly. Very aptly named.
Very. With the theming, I caught a couple of things, which as good as it looks going in that direction, kind of forgot about that side. And you do see that there's just
Yeah.
empty, undeveloped land from the top of the lift here. And I think on this hill you can also look out a little bit and see that it wasn't, no, mostly just the lift launch. So that was where it was kind of a little disappointing that we didn't wrap the water all the way around to make this a true island. Um, so that was a little off the, but otherwise a lot of great work. When I was mentioning the inconsistency about some of the supports and track work, this is probably the most glaring example of it, where we get into this 4-pipe track here. The supports are kind of far apart given the tight radius of the turn, but we're in 4-pipe track, so that kind of helps it. But I would have liked to see the supports a little closer together, and then by the time you get to the top, the speed's reducing enough that you could drop down to 3-pipe track. These two supports here looked a little iffy for where it's going on, and it seems like they would have been a better system to hold up the block brake rather than kind of these weird angled things to get over this rock. Since the rock came later, I kind of wonder why the supports were built that way in the first place.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
that's a good point.
so there's
I think
little
that
things
was
like that.
a good handout to the themer, like from the supporter, like, hey, I'm gonna do this gap here, so the themer can do something with it,
Yeah.
and I think they did.
Yep. So,
I
but
think what
it's
would have helped that a little is if they had a beam connecting the two supports down the middle.
yeah,
It probably would have made it look like just visually a little less iffy, and then the pipes could obviously be thicker, I think.
yeah, you'd want thicker pipes for that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
definitely.
Then you get occasional things like this. While I like the effort around this non-inverting loop thing here to wrap it up, you still have this long twisting span in the middle, which is, I think, pushing it, especially when you're asking the track to twist that
Yeah,
much.
as a four pipe,
Yeah,
yeah,
four
as
pipe
a
would have
four
been better.
pipe would have been better, but
Yeah, a few things like that.
yeah, this is the level of nitpicking we have to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like the quality of the rides generally is just so high because the bar is so high that we have to go this far down the chain of like, okay, here's what's wrong, and it's just these little couple of things. Otherwise, it's perfect.
yep. And it was, and
Mhm.
where the reason why I kind of caught some of these things too is that for the most part it was done correctly. So that made the few times when it wasn't done correctly more glaring, because it shows that they kind of do know what they're talking about. Looks like the station building has a lot of supports, more than anything, because I see a lot of support tube going on. Didn't understand why we had these hanging oil lanterns in a much more modern industrial looking station. And caught this, where you got this tube just kind of floating here.
Oh yeah, I noticed that too. That was
Yeah.
a little funky.
So it's one of those things when so many things are done really, really well, little things like that are kind of like, oh, missed a couple things, just small details, but that's still, again, we're picking nits because this is a third place winner. So out of all 12, this one ranked up there very, very high.
And I mean, aside from that note,
I'll
just like,
highlight. I'll,
sorry,
I,
go ahead.
sorry, you go ahead.
Okay, aside from that,
I'll highlight another. I'll
which
highlight
I guess Antti
another
has a delay, so
positive
Antti, go for it.
detail. Uh, I'll highlight another positive detail. The last corkscrew into the brakes. That shaping is
It's
pure
great.
Intamin old gen.
That's like
They
Fahrenheit.
nailed it perfectly.
It's a perfect Fahrenheit corkscrew right there.
such a good just the last cherry on top of the cake that is this layout because it's such a good layout. It's very ether systemsy in that it's like very modern and very funky. Like it's got the airtime roll, but then it has this nice old gen corkscrew, and it's just a great finale.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, go ahead and put your guesses in. Who do you think was involved for this particularly stunning track? and we'll let Auntie come up with his guesses. I only had a couple people that I guessed were in the contest, and then was immediately told XYZ had nothing to do with it, and so I'm like, well, I'm out. I only have one more guess that's pending on a different ride, and we'll see if I was right at that point.
Yeah, like Amalia, like you said, this feels A to system, so it might be J again, but then again, how many times can I bet on J to be the layout guy, and then turns out he probably wasn't at all? I don't know. I have no guesses for
I mean,
this.
Auntie, you might not be surprised when you find out.
Yep. So I think it's time to reveal team number. I think this is team 12, actually, right?
Yes, it's Team 12.
Yeah, team 12. Team 12 with Ethereal, place number 3. Congratulations to On Track, G Code. On supports, we have Darkstar and theme Timo Co. Congratulations to Team 12. I'll type it in the chat right now.
Nice, nicely done, everybody. We'll say goodbye to Ethereal. Move on to our second place coaster, and this also had a best in show placing for best in cohesion. And we're going to go ahead and load that up right now. This is Blast by team number 1. And we'll go ahead and
perfect score in cohesion. Yeah, perfect score in cohesion. A pure 10 out of 10. Like amazing.
I couldn't find anything that like I hated about it. I mean, not hated, but like it just works so well together. Every single thing fit together. It feels like one person made it, and it's a little uncanny actually.
Yeah, and to highlight also that perfect score.
This is almost one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think Auntie, you've got a delay on when you get the audio, so we'll have to keep that in mind. But overall, it's by getting that perfect score in cohesion, all 4 of us all gave this one a perfect 10 for cohesion. So, all right, go ahead, Auntie.
Yeah, this was probably one of my personal favorites, just out of all the originality and everything. You spawn over here, and unfortunately we have to mute the audio again, but you hear a beautiful tune from Swedish House Mafia, one of my personal favorites, so I'm kind of biased with this maybe. But you spawn in this square, and you already have like directions which way you want to go. And if you go to the left, there's this viewing area that shows you kind of the coaster around. You can see already the color scheme is like the first thing I noticed, and I like the white and red theming. It fits the rocket. It fits the whole vibe of the area. It doesn't matter which way you look, you always see the coaster.
Those
and then when
railings
you
are
go,
made out of roller coaster track, by the way.
That's
awesome.
true. You got to go to the stairs to the photo booth, because that was, I think I was like yelling at Elias in Discord when we saw that, because it's just so ridiculous.
Nice.
The stairs right there in front of you.
These ones.
Yeah, just like look at the railings. It's
Oh yeah.
it's ridiculous.
It's made out of roller coaster track. That's NL2 for you.
It's so old school, and it's so great. This whole ride is just.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize it was roller coaster track until you pointed it out.
That's so well blended.
Yeah.
That's great. And then you get this whole kind of like fleshed out area with cafeteria, and you enter the queue. Once again, you can hear music going on. This just feels like this belongs here. It's an actual place that you can visit. I think this is the exit.
Is this the exit? For all the signage that they offer. Oh yeah,
yeah,
there's
the right entrance.
Yeah, there's the entrance. It says right entrance. Come on.
It did, but I didn't look that way. I was looking at the open path in front of me.
Yeah, I feel like there should be an exit only sign there, now that I think about it.
This tunnel I very much like. You can see the windows going each way. Like showing you, hey, this is what you're going to do. I like the texturing that's going on. Then again, I like the station.
Gotta have Rocket Man too, right above.
Look up to the mural. on the left-hand side, well, on the right also, and on the left. If you turn around 180, yeah.
Oh, there it is.
It's so great.
So many great things.
Amazing.
Let's wait our turn patiently for our ride.
I just have to say real
Mhm.
quick, this is probably one of the most original layouts of the 12 this competition. It feels so old school. Like it feels straight out of No Limits 1 in the best way possible.
And I gotta say, it's a nice change of pace from
I
launched
agree.
Intamins and launched Gerslauers.
Like I wouldn't have expected a launched SLC out of No Limits 2, but when you see the track builder, you'll probably guess. I mean, you'll probably get it, but it's just so refreshing, and it works so well. It's great.
Yeah, it
Yeah, the
feels like a
layout is
lot of
very well weaved into both itself and the area.
completely agree.
And like, despite how not conceptual it is, but it feels very Vekoma, despite what it is and how different it is from actual SLC coasters. It feels very swoopy and open, and it reminds me a lot of Jubilee Odyssey.
Yeah, it
Ex-
does.
Yeah, I appreciated that the supports
My only
especially were done in
nitpick,
Vekoma style.
Yeah, that's the other thing that
yeah, my
just
only
each
nitpick
person.
would be sorry
Go
about
ahead.
the delay. My only nitpick would be that the tall elements are maybe a little bit too tall and a little bit too hang timey, but like that's about it. The layout overall is very much fun. It's varied, it's very well paced. Operations work. Well done.
Yeah, I picked up on that same thing that some of the elements were a little big and a little too floaty, hang timey, where it could have probably gone over it a little bit faster to just to make sure that it made it all the way through. But of course, this is the one of the ones with a long train, which does have different kinds of physics than some of the other ones. So we're just about back at the station. I'll head down the exit and then we'll show around a little bit more. Um,
Yeah, go ahead, Tom, if you can, go and fly to the helix after the mid-course brake run, because there's a couple things I want to bring up about that part of the ride that I think are really nice.
They go over the rocket.
Yeah, the
Yep.
rocket.
let's wait into,
Oh, definitely the rocket. Yeah.
you'll see that we
So
do
that's
actually.
yeah,
Go ahead.
that's something I'll have to. Oh, you're gonna walk out. Yeah, we
Yeah,
should
I'm going
walk
to walk
out.
out because we do have the exit.
All the planets.
Hmm.
I agree with all the comments you guys made about the track. I think the layout is really strong. It's just pacing wise, it might suffer in a couple areas where it seems to crawl. But I think this part especially by itself, I think might have been the weakest part for me. But I think was completely made up with what the themer did with this rocket launch. So by the time this train hits the mid-course brake run, it hits a trigger where it initiates a countdown of this static rocket ship on the right-hand side. By the time the train completes a helix, it'll dip down and it'll ignite, which is, it seems like a really fun old school theme park gag that is completely realistic and just adds a lot to the pacing of the overall ride experience for me. And it's even fun to see the integration of the rocket structure to the egress platform off that mid-course brake run, which is just, I think it's really elegant.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's really
It's
nice.
honestly one of my favorite parts of just this visual area that we have. I can't say enough positive things about it. It's so creative.
And that's why it scored so well in cohesion, because this whole thing felt like it was one person's singular design vision, and it wasn't. It was three people, and yet it all blends together so perfectly well that it
Oh,
just.
and shout out to the yellow loop, of course. It's
Mhm.
such a funky little visual that like I feel
I
like
love
if
the
it wasn't
pop.
yellow, it would just be a little bit weirder. It adds that nice splash of color, especially when you're looking at it from the entrance area.
Yep. So I like that the supports are
Totally.
very Vekoma in style overall. That was very nicely done to keep that going. My main issue with a lot of the supports though is things like this. Now, a lot of prefabs were used, which isn't a bad thing at all. But when you're in this kind of track, this should be a 90-degree banked support rather than an overhead inverted support. And there's a lot of those going on where it just doesn't fit right. And it looks very strange because you got things like this going on where the support beam is sticking out kind of in weird ways when and I have no problems with the prefabs. We built them to save time so that you can plunk them down and get most of the support structure that you already need, and then stretch it a little bit to accommodate whatever's going on underneath. But that kind of stuff, it just wasn't put together the right way, and it looked weird. So that was kind of where I hit this one the most, was on the supporting side of it, because it's a theme throughout whenever you get into the heavy banked turns. Like right here, this should have been a 90-degree bank support too, because this just doesn't look right.
I do think there are some really nice details, like we've all mentioned. It's very in the Vekoma style. There are a lot of areas where the supporter actually used these like plates.
Yeah, look, they're
on the middle of crossbeam. It's kind of a nice extra touch. Yeah, like that. I wish maybe there could have been just a little bit more finesse with how they were implemented, but it's still visually very believable and adds a lot of detail, I think, for me. It's really nicely done.
Yeah, it was a contrast of things that were really well done with it, and then parts where like that just doesn't look right. But there was so much care done to the things that were done right that unfortunately I had to dock a few points here and there.
I mean, we can go off on that tangent again and again for each entry. It's just so good. They're all so good.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and start putting your guesses in the chat, everybody.
I'm sure everyone has gotten who the
Yeah. So I could just go ahead and reveal, since everyone's been guessing this whole time. On track, actually, let me pull up the spreadsheet because I have to enunciate this correctly. So on track for team number 1, Blast, we have an old face that some of you might have not seen for a while, CB0688 on track. On supports, we have LCU CU3 or LC on the Discord. And for theme, we have none other than Element 115 or Jai for theme. Congratulations, Team 1. This was literally an example of 3 blind mice at its very best. Congrats. I'll type it into the chat.
I mean, you gotta love CB. The man, the myth, the legend himself. Just such a good old school style from him in track. It's great. I love this ride so much.
I think we're ready for the winner now, aren't we, folks?
Oh boy, the big reveal.
Exciting.
I can't wait. It's so good.
This one definitely took some of us by surprise. Apologies, by the way. I have my cat purring in the background, so I'll try and quell him down a little bit. But wow, this entry was phenomenal across the board. I didn't know what to expect, honestly, when I first received the track. This might have been the most complicated layout to support in the whole competition.
And I mean,
I immediately felt for the support. I was like, oh my God, what a mess, but in the best way possible, because this layout is insane. It's basically, you take steel curtain on steroids into almost, I guess I would say, like a giga coaster. And I would even say it even has some influence from Smiler in a way too, just with this Cobra Batwing element. You can even tell a little bit on the right-hand side of the screen. But wow, this is that kind of rider layout that it's intimidating from the very onset, and the environment as well is just incredible here as well. You come in and...
Sorry, go ahead.
Amalio.
Oh. I don't have enough positive things to say about the technical aspects of this ride. It's mental. The amount of work that had to go into making this work is ridiculous. The supports are fantastic. The layout is fantastic. Maybe I'm just biased because SNS and, they pay me to do jobs, but like, it's so good. It's so good. Everything is accurate. Everything is really detailed, and that's not even getting into the theming. Just this ride is so massive and intimidating, and it works so well. I don't really know how else to describe it other than awe-inspiring and jaw-dropping.
I just have to say also...
For me...
go ahead, Auntie. Sorry, go ahead.
For me, I almost stopped looking halfway through and just gave it 10s all around.
Oh yeah, Auntie almost gave it a 4.
Yeah.
It's
Just for the
literally
pure
amazing.
insanity of the layout and supports itself, it was like, this is 10. I don't even need to look at the details. This is 10. Jaw dropping. Deserved to win.
I will say that this was not a very optimized ride, so the frame rate chugging that you all are seeing is actually because this one performs poorly.
Yeah, I think that might have been, to be quite honest, that's probably going to have to be the big Achilles for this project for me. From an experience point of view of in the sim, but as a project by itself, it's incredible.
I love this
It's
bridge
it's
here over the
yeah, it's
holding
great.
part.
It's very Terran-esque. It reminds me of Terran.
Um, it's definitely probably like the last ride we looked at. It felt very fleshed out. It felt very real into a park, and this queue is the most fleshed out I've seen in a
Mm.
long time. It has, you can't tell, there's a lot of audio. It has different lanes for, I would guess, fast pass, ops, and it has this static ride vehicle on display. There's safety spiels going on in the background. There's a lot of rich detail
And
in
just
here.
the little
It's
grouping
yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it's great. It's literally what you would see in a Disney park, and really, really practical and reason. And I think very reasonable to achieve scenic work. I think that it's not out of the realm of reality for what you would see in parks today, and it's a really great setup for what I have to say is one of the most intimidating roller coasters I've ever been on in this simulator. It's 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 the tone just sets up for something really like you're going to get on a really high tech, crazy experience. I don't even know what the story of this ride is. I think the story is that you arrive at an outpost somewhere and they have like a testing flight vehicle that you can just fly around while you refuel, which I think is kind of a neat concept. But I mean, this layout just is insane. This tunnel's fun too. I think some other comments I had in terms of how the theming is done, I feel like there's some inconsistencies with how the texturing is done. I think there could have been some more polish with the quality of the textures and how they come together. But I think that that still made up for just how much diversity in textures there are, and just it feels already like a very rich environment by itself. This is a really tall ride, as you can see. I think it just falls short of the 300-foot mark, but I'll go ahead and say it's a giga. It's insane. And literally, as you go through the whole layout, it's paced really well. It flows really nicely. There's a lot of moments of anticipation and deception where you think it just does one roll, then it does an extra roll. And the supporting, I haven't mentioned enough about the supports on this ride. It's so technically strong, and just it literally takes the steel curtain style very well. They had a really great sense of spans and thicknesses, and lots of excellent details with little intersections. Beams might hang a little bit further in certain areas. Certain connections taper a certain way. It's just so excellently
Oh
done.
yeah, the
And
changing of diameter between the connections and the supports. That was such a fun detail.
such a great detail. And the environment is great too. It's like this aurora with like, it feels like Avatar sort
It's
of.
very
It's these large,
Pandora-y.
yeah, like Pandora, like these large warped trees. It's really great, really original. Loved it.
It fits
And
right into
this,
that uncanny valley for me where it's like it feels very earthly, but at the same time so otherworldly, and it's really funky and I love it. It's just so different.
Yeah,
It's like Starship.
there's these weird trees that are very much alien looking, and they wobble around a lot more than the other trees, which was another really nice touch for the theme portion of it.
yeah, it's I literally just can't say enough great things about this ride. It's amazing.
There are
It's
very,
really,
very few flaws to note here. It's ridiculous.
I think also, well, and someone just wrote this in the chat too. It's literally, I think I was really blown away by the theming effort, because I think this might have, if it's hard for me to believe that this was done in a 2 week window. I think out of everything I've seen. So it really shows how much mileage each person can get given the time frame. It's really impressive.
So
Absolutely impressive.
when I looked at the operations of the ride, because it has such a massively long layout, train stack every time, and it's quite a long stack. Block break may have helped that, or just some slight changes to the timing of certain things could have helped make that work a little bit easier. And yeah, this was a supporting nightmare, which is exactly what I do to myself when I build my coasters, because I will build I'll build the track layout, and I will not think about later having to run some tubes through that area. I'll go ahead and fly out for now. This was a supremely well done coaster because it does have an exit, and it does have an operator control panel and a whole bunch of other great things going on. Again, wish it performed better. And there's another thing that
really do.
We may all get the error that happens a little bit from one thing that was not set correctly. The themed coaster train that's sitting there.
In the queue.
After a while, the brake it's on will release, and it'll roll forward into another brake and give you a deadlock warning. And that's an easy to solve thing by just, instead of leaving it on a block brake track of some sort with a really long timer, just to have it call it a storage track and have that train lashed to the track, and then it won't ever move and it won't ever give you the deadlock warning. But it will at some point roll forward, and I was very confused when I saw that. I was like, what do you mean deadlock? The trains are all running. And then figured out it was the themed train sitting there.
It wasn't I don't think it was that's such a minor flaw for
it's like
what is really all around incredible
it's
job.
such a nitpick.
It is a nitpick.
But I think that can be fixed by the time this gets uploaded. Like I don't think it's really a huge deal.
And I mean,
but
it runs poorly, but to be honest, I really wasn't taking that into consideration for judging, because it's just, I feel like the 3D modeling in and of itself is something separate from how well it runs. And I mean, it is a problem, but I really didn't take it into consideration for my score, and I don't. Oh, there it is.
Right there.
Yep, right on cue.
Yep. And then when you go take a look at it in the queue, which is somewhere in where did it? I'm lost in the geometry now. There it is. If we take a look at it, you'll see that it has in fact slid forward, and it's crashed partially into the ground. So, oops.
Yeah. The intern didn't strap it correctly while they were installing the ride. That's okay.
Exactly. But as mentioned, the supports, they are really well done. I had to get insanely nitpicky to find anything in there, and I couldn't find that much overall. Just about everything was custom. There's a couple of spans that I felt were maybe a hair too long, and a couple of oddities here and there. Again, it comes down to an inconsistency about how certain things were handled, and some weird angled supports that I wasn't entirely sure about. Let's see if I can find some better examples of them. It's just tough in this maze of support columns. But I think I highlighted it in my comments, like this one right here. This one, and it took a while to find this because I had to go through the entire track very, very, very carefully, and it's so dense it took a while to look at every support. But something like this felt a little strange, like it should be maybe an A-frame support rather than kind of bending off at a weird sharp angle like that. So it's only a couple of little things like that, just minor quibbles, which is what I noticed.
If you go up to that like rolling dive there, you can actually see the tapered pipe diameter on the other side, like on the side of the lift.
On the side of the lift?
Yeah, the rolling dive there.
Oh, this thing here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly.
Oh, look, there it is. Yeah, that support right in the center.
For me, this was so good.
Oh, this right here.
And yeah, that was
it's
great.
so good.
Yeah, this is just madness.
I have to say, just since there's some people asking, this just barely missed out on the overall support score by less than a whole point. It was literally razor thin close to Starship, but I personally gave this a 10. It's such a Herculean effort for supports. I don't know how I could have supported this, especially in a 2-week window. I would have given up. So honestly, great job to the team here. Mm-hmm. I think it's time to reveal the winners.
Well, I do have one more thought.
Sure, everyone has
share.
Wait, hold up.
Ahead.
Yeah, one more thought.
I'm holding.
Hold it. The only thing I had to note in part of cohesion was that, and it took me a while to kind of realize this, and I have it in my notes stating that, but it eventually occurred to me that what I would like to have seen more to give it a little more cohesion score is to have the coaster interact somehow with anything else here. You have the station and the queue, which is all really, really well done. You have the supports that are brilliantly done. The coaster is brilliantly done, but the coaster kind of sits on this peninsula by itself and has nothing to do with anything. There's no scenic overlooks. The queue pathway doesn't go underneath it in any way. they're very much kind of separated off to the side. So I dropped the cohesion score on my side just a little bit because of that, and I felt that there could have been some way to bring them together, or maybe like have this corkscrew go over Q, or somehow build it in. And what hit me is that this ride, because it's so very much a new S&S coaster, and it reminds me of a just really scaled up steel curtain. I was then reminded that steel curtain dives over midways, and it very much interacts with other parts of the park, and this didn't. So that was the only reason why I felt it could have done a little bit more to get to really tie everything together. But I also pointed out that I'm really picking nits on this one because everything is so well done with it.
Yeah, it's excellent across the board. Such a strong effort for each role.
And it has nothing to do with the giant Imperial starship that might shoot me if I say something negative.
I mean, it might.
Okay, so
Should we reveal the score because this is the winner?
The win, yeah, I guess so.
Why not?
It got it basically almost a landslide victory if you consider less than a point a landslide victory, because it was literally so close between the top five. It got a 37.75 out of 40. The Blast got 35.63, so that was probably the largest margin in the contest. It was so close between everybody else. So that should then lead us to the reveal. Who won? Who's behind this creation that we're all
I
looking
bet they
at?
guessed supports already.
Well, some of you might be surprised. So, on track for team number 10, Elysium, we have CR Bike. On supports, we have Marv. And on theme, we have Blaze Ryan. Congratulations on winning Free Blind Mice, team number 10. I'll type it into the chat.
Very well done. Bravo.
Well done, everyone. Well done.
Truly, this is ridiculous. I can't believe that everyone did this in 2 weeks per roll. It's insane.
Indeed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to reveal all of the other scores that came about, or at least not the scores, but we're going to reveal all the teams who were behind all of the remaining RMPs. Elias, what was the key to get the Acrobat in full screen again?
Control L.
Control L,
Tom.
Thank you. I'm still getting used to that one. And I will go ahead and reveal this screen now, which everybody should be able to see.
I don't see it yet on the stream.
Yeah.
Can you guys see it?
It'll show up on the stream overall, but I'm not sharing this screen internally for the Discord, so that's what you
yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, okay.
So I will go ahead and scroll through this so that we can kind of talk about what else is going, or the other entries that were not featured today, because we didn't. We were talking about it, and while we would love to feature everybody and explain all of it, we also, didn't want this to last for 5 or 6 hours. So we ended up picking the top 5 plus the honorable mention. It's also worth mentioning that Elysium had the best coaster score overall, along with the overall top score. So other teams that were part of this, go ahead. This is Team 4 that created Minjek, I believe.
It's called
Minjek.
Pronounced Minjek.
Minjek. Okay, good. I was completely wrong. Excellent. Which is all.
There's your ride, Jube.
And the team behind this was track. We had N. Greenberg 2019. Supports was Pupper, and theme Bartolomeus.
Bartolomeus.
I believe it's Bartolome. Yeah.
The Bartolomeus.
Bartolomeus. Yeah.
I'm gonna butcher most of these, which is great. So.
But I just have to say real quick about this ride. This might have been one of the biggest surprises for me personally in the competition. It's very unassuming from this image, but I 100% I have to say you cannot miss this ride. The theming is really original, and I think done very effectively for something that I don't think I've seen done yet in No Limits. So 100% check this out. Awesome, loved it.
Mm-hmm. Next reveal.
Yeah, this was one of those that felt like it was done by one person and not a team of 3.
Yeah, it felt very cohesive.
Very good. And the next one we're going to reveal is Fuego at Ras Al Ramal Resort. This was Team 9, and Team 9 consisted of track by Mac, supports by Togofan, and theme Bolero. And this is the one I actually pegged somebody correctly. I thought this was going to be Togo supporting.
I mean, it's pretty hard to mistake. He's got a very iconic style.
He does.
Style.
Yep, exactly. So very cool one.
Oh,
This
hang
is a
on, Tom. I think the names are being cropped out from the live stream. I don't think people can see on the. I just see Team Nine at the bottom.
gotcha. Let me
So
see if I can
maybe
adjust that. Let's see what I can do to make that make more sense. There we go. Oh, can we see him now better? Actually,
I need to wait for the live stream to catch up.
yeah, it's slightly off. Because it wants
Yeah,
to.
I'm seeing. Well, while that's getting resolved, this was such a. Oh, I can see just the almost. I see Togo fan, but I don't see
There we go.
Bolero.
Okay, I finally was able to drag it into screen. There you go.
Okay, great. So,
Oh, there we go.
I think we got it. Well, I
Yep.
trust you. This might have been honestly also one of my favorite layouts of the competition, and it was really such a surprise. I think this is honestly, this probably might have been another big honorable mention for me, just because it's such an unusual cast of characters that each had a hand in this competition, as some of you are already commenting on the chat. Togo can do really good supports, believe it or not, when when brought to the task. But this really it's a really creative layout, a mock multi-launch coaster with an interesting set of supports and a really wild theme. You have to check it out to see for yourself. But this really felt to me like a modern take on like a Desperado type ride that's like a um, diamond in the rough, just in the middle of the desert, and there's a big party at a desert resort in the Middle East. It's very strange, but I love it also at the same time. And it's called Fuego at Ras Al Ramal Resort. What more can you say out of that? It's great. I love it.
All right.
Check it out. Team Nine.
Next up, we have Team 5 that created Pele, and Team 5 consisted of track by J. Cool, or Jackal. I know we know it's Jake. Supports were by Aiden Lars 03, and the theme from JP. Joseph did the theme. That starts to explain quite a bit about it.
Yep, that's
Doesn't it?
right.
But very, very nice work on this one. A lot of cool stuff. We are a little bit over, so we're going to go ahead and move things along. But we definitely want to give the reveal so everybody now finds out who they were working with.
Yep.
Next up, Team 6 created Sunshine, and Team 6 consisted of track was done by Accelerator 4, supports by Pool Coaster Guy, and the theme by Casper. Nicely done, and nice to see the not use that often B&M stand-up as a coaster style. Very cool.
It's actually a really nice layout for it.
It was. It was
Yeah, yeah.
their original ideas, but it still felt in the realm of what we've seen and would believe from B&M on a stand-up. So very nicely done. Next up, we have Cortesios, and that's Team 7, which consisted of the track was by T-Lands, supports Zach B4901, and the theme from Piff Pof Parf Paf, that guy, 123. I'm used to seeing a lot of these names, and I've never spent any time actually trying to pronounce them. So
I think it's something like Piff Piff Paff 123.
Yeah, that's what I think.
that probably. And Piff, if we got it wrong, we're sorry, but not that sorry. It's a tricky word. So all right, we have that. Next up, we have Starfighter from Team 8, and that team consisted of track was by Serming, supports from Asuka, and the theme from Crystallic.
And that's our last team.
That is it.
Everybody.
That is
So if you go
everybody.
to this final slide here, if you go to the last page, Tom,
Mm-hmm.
this is basically it, everyone. This is Three Blind Mice 2021. I can't tell you honestly what I expected when Amalia and I started this competition, but we ended up getting 12 incredible rides. When you put it into perspective, it's crazy to think we had 36 people have their hands in this. And honestly, I think it's a great sign that the community is still hungry, is still well. still energized and
Still alive and kicking.
yeah, and I'm just absolutely inspired by what everyone did here. It was awesome work
I can't
across the board.
I can't express how awesome it was to host this contest because it's so long overdue. I don't even remember the first time this was brought up, but it must have been in like 2014 or 2015, right when No Limits 2 was in its infancy. And it's just so long overdue, and I'm so grateful and really happy that I got to play a part in this, and everyone did so well. I can't overstate just how awesome everybody did. It's truly inspiring and absolutely incredible, and everyone who participated in the contest, pat yourselves on the back because just wow.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
Auntie, before we go, since you have the delay, any final thoughts from you?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for asking me to judge. This was very much fun, even more fun than I expected, because holy crap, the level of skill everyone brought to the table was amazing. Everyone who participated actually deserves a good pat to the back. You did a very well job.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Also, I got to thank you, Ilias and Malia, for asking me to help join and judge. Judging,
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you, both
yeah,
of you.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
want to
no,
make
thank you both for showing up. It's been really fun having you guys on.
I want to make one more quick comment before we all sign off. Is that to all the themers, we are going to release all the judging as a live document. So now that this is out, all the themers are able to upload to the exchange. Finally, we can all ride each other's great creations. I just suggest you'll see on the judging form just to make sure to include the rest of your team as co-collaborators. And if you plan to make any videos, just make sure to include everyone credited and all. But that's all I have to say, guys. It was an absolute pleasure running this competition.
It was a pleasure joining in there and assisting. And we will, as we mentioned, we're going to share the overall score sheet in read-only view, so everybody can go through there and look at the comments. We all wrote comments for all 4 categories of all 12 entries. So giving our thoughts and
A
what we
lot
think
of
went.
literature.
Yep, there's a lot to read there and a lot of valuable feedback, which is ultimately what we want it to be. We don't want to sit here and just be like, oh, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, this is wrong, this wrong, you get us 2. We really wanted to make sure that these comments are helpful and constructive and call out the good stuff and point out some of the things where we feel a little more effort could have been made, and not just simply say, well, you did this wrong, but actually say, here's what would have improved it. So it takes it into further context and gives you that next step of what to think about next time. But still, outstanding work from everybody. Definitely glad to be a part of this, and thank you to everybody for participating. Thank you to Ilias and Amalia for running this. They had a lot of hard work to do to just keep the entries moving back and forth, keep on top of everybody, and run things. Those of you who have not run a contest of any kind have no idea how much work goes into preparing for it, keeping it running, judging it all. It's a ton of work. So thank you again to everybody. We will have this year's 5 hours of power contest at some point. I will start getting a survey going to figure out what date will work best for everybody and figure out what the contest is going to be to make you all suffer again, as you all love to do. So
It's the yearly rite of passage.
it really is, and so everybody is just stressed to the gills and swearing and just sweating and just exhausted by the end of it, having just a ton of fun going through whatever new fiendish challenge we gave you in only 5 hours to deal with it. So
Yep.
thank you again, everybody. This has been a lot of fun. I look forward to the document being shared out so that you can see what the final comments were and each of the coasters download. Definitely go take a look at Chun Trails to see the experience and then see all the reveal of how it's being accomplished, because there's a lot of clever trickery going on there that's definitely worth experiencing and taking a look at behind the scenes what happened. So thank you, everybody. Stay well, stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully soon we'll see each other back at the amusement parks as soon as everything is safe to do so. Keep a lookout for the survey about 5 hours of power. And with that, everybody, have yourselves a good day, afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time it is for you.
Whatever time zone you're in.
Exactly. Thank you, everybody, and we'll
Thanks.
see you next time.
Peace out, y'all.
Thanks. Bye
See
bye.
ya.